Welcome into 11 Personnel. I'm Nick Roush, joined here by Adam Luckett as we get you ready for the Cats and the Commodores. Not your typical JP3 Davis special. This game has got a little extra juice, Mr. Luckett, because Vanderbilt, they brought some of their own when Alabama came to town last week and just ripped off the biggest win in school history. It's kind of nice. Like this isn't just Kentucky is what, a 14-point. I haven't checked the spread lately, but they're
13 and a half at all books today.
Okay, they're a big favorite, but it feels like this is a real SEC football game and not just you walk on in, you get your win, you head home. Feels a little different.
Yeah, absolutely. Nick, in my heyday, this wasn't even a 3 Daves game on Jefferson Pilot.
Yeah.
This was tape delay. This was Rob Bromley game. Jeff Van Note. This was Drew Diener on the sideline game.
People forget Diener used to be calling Kentucky football games.
You find that old tape of 2006 when Kentucky beat Georgia. I probably have it at my parents' house somewhere on VHS. Drew Diener was the sideline guy that day. So my day, this game wouldn't even there was a lot of games growing up that I didn't even get to watch Kentucky Vanderbilt live. I had to catch the delay. I was in the stadium when Glenn Holt caught a touchdown pass with under a minute left when a 2-9 Vanderbilt team lost to a 3-8 Kentucky team. So I have seen some of the bottom of these games. Mark Story was telling us a great story, no pun intended there, on Monday about how Vanderbilt beat a bad Kentucky team, I guess in the early 2000s. I think he said 2002, 2003. Vanderbilt, they had this long losing streak. Students were running into the stadium from campus to tear down a goalpost to beat like a 2-win Kentucky team. And so this series has definitely not seen the best football in the past. But this year, it does have some extra juice. And much of that, Kentucky plays a role in that. But much of that is due to what Alabama did last week and what Vandy did to Alabama. And so, like one of my bigger takeaways or bigger like thoughts or bigger wonders going into this game is like, we're probably going to see a really juiced up crowd for a Vanderbilt game in October. First Keeneland double dip of the season. Like, I think the crowd is going to be pretty rowdy. And most of it is due to Vandy beating Alabama last week.
I appreciate that. Rest on Verba points out that Tim Couch's last game at Commonwealth was against Vandy. He was in the stands for that one, and that was a big it was probably like 5 years away from really the proliferation of the bowl games, and 6 wins just automatically got you in. They needed to win that game to get to a 7th win in an 11-game schedule because number 1 Tennessee was waiting the next week on the road. So there's you had to get that win to ensure that you were going to be able to play in a good bowl game in the postseason. And if I'm not mistaken, it was like any Hal Mummy Air Raid game, but Couch, I think he set career highs on his senior day. Had 500 yards and 6 touchdowns, and Kentucky won 45-28 or something like that.
We'll pull it up. This is an internet show, so we can pull up stuff like this.
We do have Peak said that they were chanting one more year with Couch.
It was a 50-burger game, Nick.
Okay, so they did get to 50.
17 Cats on November 14th.
Okay.
1998.
Not as close as I recall then. All right. Well, I knew Couch put up crazy numbers in that game during the mini college football Hall of Fame stuff. That was a big bright spot to kind of put an exclamation point in the year. We don't really want to talk about what happened after that because things got a little ugly the 24 hours after that. But that was a memorable win for sure. There's no doubt about it. And that was back when Vandy they've had a lot of different iterations of ugly football helmets. The V with Vanderbilt across the side of it was by far that was the worst logo they had.
Yeah, that's the Woody Weidenhofer era, the wood chipper. But the next year, Nick, in 99, Kentucky went down there.
Mm-hmm.
And it was for a bowl game. Both teams had 5 wins, and both teams had a tough game coming up next. I think Vandy had a bye before they played Tennessee, and that's when Tennessee obviously was rolling. So they had to win that game, and that game was actually on ESPN2, and it
The
was like a sold
Deuce.
out. It was a sold out crowd down there, and mostly of Kentucky fans. That was a big because that was a big deal to get to a bowl game 2 years in a row for Kentucky.
Yeah.
In that time, and Kentucky won that game, 19-17. So a close one. That was the Dusty Bonner, James Whalen team, and so yeah, you had that. I think in 08, Vandy came up here. And I think Kentucky was already bowl eligible, but Vandy, that was their first like chance to get bowl eligible in a long time. And that was a big game, and they beat Kentucky. And kind of a good game. I think Kentucky fell in a hole and then came storming back. So there hasn't been many moments like I think the one we're gonna get on Saturday, because the James Franklin era, for as good as it was, Kentucky, that was the bottom of the barrel that they've probably been in program. I mean, for an extended 3-year run there, they were pretty bad. But this time, I think this game has some, some stakes, and we're not used to Kentucky Vanderbilt game. Like, they're going to talk about this game on game day. Like, they usually don't talk about the Kentucky Vanderbilt game on College game day. But this week, it's going to be, I think, one of the top. Well, it's a stacked week, but they'll get to it, and they will discuss it.
Yeah, somebody's brought up the Cub Snake game in Nashville.
I was there in 2019.
All over them. That was a fun time. There was a game where Woodson threw 450 yards and 4 touchdowns. Unfortunately, my Vanderbilt, like, aside from the game where did Charles Walker fumble? No, yeah, Bowden fumbled it and Charles Walker jumped on it like a 40-yard gain, and then we scored on the next play down there. That kind of put the game out of reach. And I believe that was no, that didn't start the bowl streak, but
is that 2017?
Yeah. That sounds right.
That was the birth of the Big Blue Wall. After that game, Benny Snell said, "I couldn't do it without the Big Blue Wall," and took a picture of him after the game. It's on Twitter. You can find it if Elon lets you. And after then, that's when they started calling him the Big Blue Wall. That was the birth. That was the Big Blue Wall game. And Kentucky was actually a dog in that game, and it just hammered them. But that was the birth of the Big Blue Wall.
Took care of business. But it is one of those things where usually the Vanderbilt games that stick out are because you lost them in embarrassing fashion. Which the game
Shandor.
The game down that surprisingly sticks out. I know everybody wants to think about when you were one of the 10,000 people that was there for that James Franklin blowout. But in 05, they should have gone to a bowl, or not in 05, 15, they should have gone to a bowl game. They had him beat and didn't cover wide receivers. Drew Barker came in for Patrick Scholes because he played horribly. And it was just one of the more awkward, uncomfortable. It's like, yeah, you just didn't cover the guy on the sidelines. Like, you were that was a very frustrating, because you knew that was their opportunity. They had to do that. And it's like, all you had to do was just cover this guy, tackle him. Even when your offense played terrible, you were still going to get to the postseason. And that loss put a lot of pressure on Stoops going into that 2016 year, because that was back-to-back 5-win teams. And I believe that 15 year was one of those years too where they went like 5. They were 5-2 and then just lost out.
Yes.
Yeah, it was rough. It was a tough way to end the season.
That year got sideways quick because they really should have beat Auburn in that Thursday night game. I think that was kind of a swing game for the Stoops tenure in a lot of ways. I think you win that game, a lot of people would have been all in, and then I think you saw people start to fall off the wagon there. Mm-hmm. Then the EKU, it was almost a fiasco, like almost a disaster.
Yeah.
And it's funny. We're talking about this right now. And then they go on and lose out. The Dawson stuff goes really bad. Tolles takes a big step back.
Yeah.
It's kind of similar to what Vanderbilt went through last year.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
A.J. Swan, you're kind of all in on him. You have this really nice 5-7 season. Year 2, you bust through. Year 3 goes really bad. And then year 4 starts off bad, and you kind of transform yourself on offense. You change your identity on offense, and then you find a superstar in Benny Snell, who you kind of build your DNA and identity and culture around, kind of his playing style. And now Vanderbilt's kind of doing the same thing just with Diego Pavia. Because this program was dead in the water, Nick. Like,
Yeah.
at media days, everyone just thought, oh, that's, like, is it going to get bad enough where Clark Lee gets fired? They seem dead in the water.
Yeah.
And now they have life, mainly because of this quarterback. So, yeah, the comparison, they're kind of very eerily similar to me.
That's a great point, Luckett. And it's funny because it didn't work out in the way you thought it would for Kentucky, but it did. And that's the same thing here, where you just went and you take New Mexico State, you bring Las Cruces to Nashville. So we'll talk about that importation. We're going to answer some of your messages here on the YouTube chat. But first, we need to tell you about our presenting sponsor at Monticello Bank, where they've been in business for 120 plus years, taking care of you, because at Monticello Bank, it's where people matter. It's convenient because they want it to be easy on you. They want to make life easy on you. Banking doesn't need to be a hassle.
Nick, we got some breaking news once you finish that read.
Okay.
Keep going.
You do your availability report, get that sucker posted, and you can tell me the breaking news. But Monticello Bank, you can visit them at nbcbank.com. You can bank anywhere with the Monticello Bank, the Go NBC mobile app, and just always trust Monticello Bank. They'll take good care of you. Monticello Bank, where people matter. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Monticello Bank, proud presenting sponsors of 11 personnel. And I'm waiting on pins and needles for this availability report, Mr. Luckett. We had people asking about Hairston and Gilmore in the chat. Are they available in the availability report?
Chip Trainum out. Maxwell Hairston out. Cortland Ford, probable.
Whoa.
So a big curveball here. We were not expecting this. Tarian Nichols, doubtful. I had a feeling that was coming after that shoulder injury. The expected's out. Looks like also Nick Devin Smith, freshman linebacker, who's been banged up. He's not on here at all, so he could be good to go. He could probably play 4 games for Kentucky on special teams. Brock Vandergrift showing up as probable again, but I wouldn't be too alarmed by that. Keyshawn Silver, probable.
Harley Gilmore,
probable. So there you go.
Love to hear that. I kind of expected that after seeing him at practice. He was practicing when I was there yesterday, fully padded. So you can expect him to be probably good to go, maybe potentially make his debut against the Vanderbilt Commodores. We should have known that Cortland Ford was going to appear on this injury report, because if you're a subscriber to KSR Plus, which if you aren't, join 50 is the promo code right now and get 50% off to get on KS Board. A lot of football recruiting updates this week. We learned about Kentucky that they are officially expanding rosters to 105. So there's a lot of new targets seemingly on the board. The Cats are in the mix for a lot of guys. We've got all of that intel and much, much more over at KSR Plus. Join 50 right now, 50% off an annual subscription when you sign up today. But one of our members is Cortland Ford's father, and he hadn't heard from him in a while, and he had a long message about, like, when he's ready, he'll be ready, and should have known that they were cooking something up. We haven't seen much of the USC transfer. He only played sparingly last year at offensive tackle. I can't say that I'm mad or upset wholeheartedly with the offensive tackle play. You're disappointed in their pass protection. And you know what? That's what Ford's strength was before he got to Kentucky. So maybe he can provide a little extra help in the pass pro. But that's great to see Cortland Ford at probable. We weren't expecting much, if anything at all, from him this year. So that was heartening, as well as Gilmore too, because sometimes you think coaches are just kind of, some can be full of it, right? Like Rich Scangarello talked about everybody like they were he talked about everybody like they were the best football player ever, and everybody was going to the NFL, and so you had to be able to read through the crap. Bush Hamden, after we're halfway through his first season, I feel like I got a good idea of when he says certainly a lot, when he wants to just kind of walk around, tiptoe around things. He ain't never tiptoed around praising Harley Gilmore. he thinks very highly of this kid. So if he can be good enough, we were thinking wide receiver 4, maybe even wide receiver 3, the way they talked about him before his injury. So potentially getting him back could be significant. While Luckett's rounding home on that,
Yeah,
I
Nick,
did.
I will say on this just before you get going.
I was going to go
There,
into the Vanderbilt side and mention
yeah,
one.
two defensive starters, and probably they're arguably their two best players. C.J. Taylor, Langston Patterson are both listed as questionable. So that's definitely something I think to
Yeah.
keep an eye out for this week.
The C.J. Taylor one particularly, he's been around there for a while. Clark Lee guy. He plays their star. I think they still call it the star, where he's a safety that'll walk up in the box but also drop back deep. Real havoc creator. Both listed as questionable. You mentioned the other one, Langston Patterson. Big players on this defense. So if it's a 50-50 shot, you think maybe one might go, maybe one might not. That's something to keep in mind. I did want to mention one other cornerback for Vanderbilt that's been pretty darn good for them, Martell Height. I always get him mixed up. This is for the recruit next with Romello Height, who Kentucky recruited, who's an edge guy that ended up at Georgia Tech. It's just Martell Height, Romello Height, very similar, spelled different. Get him mixed up. But Martell Height, he had a pick 6 last year. He had Vandy's first punt return touchdown in the game since 2012 against their FCS opponent earlier this year. He's a weapon in the return game. That's a guy. Like the Vanderbilt defense ain't great, but him and C.J. Taylor, they're pretty good playmakers for him in the secondary. They can make some stuff happen if you make mistakes in the passing attack.
Yeah, I definitely. And Vandy, they only had a couple guys on the report last week, so as expected, play a physical game against Alabama. Also for the recruit Nick's Grayson Morgan, who was a guy Eric Wolford recruited pretty heavily last time around when he was here in his first stint. He's been out for the last few weeks and won't be available this week. So overall, I think the big surprises, or not necessarily surprise, but expected Maxwell Harrison to be out. But seeing Cortland Ford, it's definitely a curveball, and Harley Gilmore as expected. But everything else, kind of status quo here on here on this week 7. Yeah, week 7 injury report.
Yep, week 7 injury report. Lane Kiffin's still playing the game, or he was like 25 people.
He's left.
Matt Jones.
Trey Harris is one to watch there. Yeah,
after getting shot. Trey Harris. That could be something. That game. That's one of those where it's like, oh, there's a lot of history there, but it's like how much do you lean on history versus I just think they're the better team. I kind of side with history a little bit there, but I do think for Kentucky's sake, I'd rather see Ole Miss win that, because if they win that game, it's this kind of feels like a playoff elimination game. Because after this, like Ole Miss's only signature win they can really get is Georgia. I guess if you beat Georgia and go 10-2, you're probably good. But the stakes are high in that game, no doubt about it. We'll preview that game and much more, the entire slate, tomorrow afternoon on the KSR YouTube channel on the Pigskin Preview. Which, by the way, if you're not subscribed, like Jack's really going to be starting to amp things up with Sources Say during the college basketball season. So a lot of content. We've already got a ton out there. If you're subscribed, you saw all the stuff from Media Day. So a lot of content coming out. Please do yourself a favor. Just go hit that button. You'll get the notifications whenever we go live. It's pretty simple stuff. Make sure all of your stuff is right there in one place by subscribing to us on the KSR YouTube channel and liking our videos. Let's get into the nitty gritty of this matchup. And I guess we just start where it starts for this team, and that is they went and the one thing that was funny is when Clark Lee got asked about New Mexico State at SEC Media Days, he gave such a bullcrap answer. It was like he was just lying through his teeth. He couldn't come up with a good answer. He's like, well, I saw them play in the season, and I just really blah, 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 blah. Like, dude, you portaled them. You got their head coach, you got their offensive coordinator, and you got their quarterback. you stole their main piece of their operation. did they get any more players too, like it, or was Pavia just?
They got 4 or 5, but really it's 2,
Mhm.
Pavia, and then Eli Stowers, who's their best player.
Stowers is he's their leading receiver and he's their
Everything,
tight end.
yeah.
So
Yeah, he is the best. Like Pavia is the engine. Stowers might as well be the gasoline running this vehicle. Like Stowers is everything for not everything, but like he is clearly the number 1 target. Leads them in targets. They do a lot of the gadget type plays and misdirection stuff involves him. So like going into this game prep, you probably have on the Kentucky scouting report. Pavia is probably written first with a big paragraph. Stowers is next, and he's got a lot of writing by his name. He is very much the offense. Is Pavia going to be hung over still? He did say he idolizes Johnny Football, so I'm sure he's had a few cold pops there at Winners and Losers, Nick.
Yeah, they actually brought Johnny Football on during an interview you had with College Football Live. I don't know if there's a whole lot to do in Las Cruces, so I'm sure that he knows his way around the nightlife when need be. But I don't think many people pay attention to New Mexico State football. The only reason why they were really on my radar ever is because of the unusual nature of that position. Doug Martin was a former UK guy.
Right.
I don't remember if he was a player or coach or all the stuff. I think
Player.
he was just okay. But he was the head coach out there when they came to Lexington and got their teeth kicked in. I remember previewing the game one year, Luckett, and the most notable thing I could find about their program is they had a tree growing in the middle of the stadium where it started as a weed and it just became a full-fledged tree, and it was going to cost too much to get rid of it, so they just let it become part of the stadium. That's how down that program was. And then Jerry Kill, he's this guy who just I get Bruce Arians vibes from him, Luckett, because he's got that just red face, the gray hair, and he always looks like sick. And Kill does he had he had medical issues in Minnesota where he would like sit out a few games and he'd come back. Eventually he had to retire. Well, then they pull him out of retirement to go to Las Cruces, and he somehow, I mean, I cannot stress you how bad that program was, and he made them a 10-win team. He got them to a bowl game and then made them a 10-win team the year after. And they were a fun team to bet on. They would play like hell. New Mexico State is playing right now as we speak on ESPN2. So I loved kind of following around with them because Pavia was fun. He had some like UNLV Matt Sluka sort of energy where he wasn't the best passer, but he was running around a lot, tough, hard nosed. Just a fun G5 quarterback. And I don't know how it all went down. I forget what bowl game they went to, but essentially, Kill announces he's
the Detroit Bowl, whatever they call it, Quick Lane, Little Caesars. It's the old Motor City Bowl.
Yeah. But essentially, Kill, shortly after that, he announces he's retiring. And this time I think, okay, you know what? You're riding out on your horse from Las Cruces. You turn nothing into something. You're getting old. You've had health issues in the past. I get it. A couple weeks later, he's going to be a quality control guy in Nashville. I don't know how much they knew that the rules were going to change either. They won't say what Jerry Kill does over there. Like he's very much like the little finger. Clark Lee won't mention it because his offensive coordinator is actually calling the plays, but Kill is very much involved. There's no doubt in my mind. He's involved in the game planning, and he is the reason why this offense and identityless, like they had more talent on last year's offense, and they were 10 times worse. And the unusual part about it, Luckett, is all of their analytics are great because they run so few plays. It's like we're going to slow it down and just be the most efficient damn machine you've ever seen in your life. It is wild what they've been able to accomplish in Nashville, and they're kind of doing what some people propose for the longest time, Luckett, but it was always conspiracy theory. You can't ever have a triple option.
Yeah, that was my conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
Like the league office would never allow these cut blocks and for you to just dive into the knees of future first-round draft picks on line of scrimmage, which is not what Vandy's doing, but it's It's like an offshoot variation of that.
When Bowden was doing his thing, people compared it a lot to what Oklahoma did with Jalen Hurts, where it was single wing principles, but out of shotgun with a lot of pulling guards and fake handoffs, just trying to get you on misdirection before you had a physical runner blow you up. And, you know, I don't, Pavia is no Lynn Bowden or Jalen Hurts, but he's a good runner. He's tough. And they got a pretty good running back with him in Cedric Washington, who's a good, tough runner. And it's kind of nice that you had a bye to be able to at least to get used to seeing all of those, as Freddie would call them, those flashy lures in practice. So you're not just biting on them and having dirty eyes on game day.
Yeah. Just to go back to the Kill thing. He is basically the head coach on offense. So I think I've heard Clark Lee, he kind of explained it more at media days when doing all that circuit. Where like in practice, Lee is now the defensive coordinator. He's the de facto defensive coordinator. He hired another analyst, some guy from the NFL. So they've got two analysts now, one on defense and one on offense, that are kind of de facto coordinators. Kill, and then I don't have the other guy's name in front of me. I wrote about this on KSR Plus all the way back in July. Join now. 50% off sale, by the way. Deep dive football content. Greatest message board in the Southeastern Conference. Everything you ever want in a college sports website. KSR Plus. Join now. So anyway, no hyperbole there. So back to my point. Kill is just like the head coach of the offense. He hired Tim Beck first, and then I think he had a phone conversation with Kill, and Kill said he would be open to coming and helping out.
Feels about right.
So I think in practice, like he's probably plays a big role in the game planning and all of that. But during these games, Nick, Jerry Kill is in his hip pocket, Clark Lee. So like any in-game decision, I think he's really helping with. And I would bet he's probably the de facto head coach when Lee has to go over and talk to the defense to do any type of DC stuff. And so he's a big role, I think, in this. And Lee, I think, is obviously trying not to make too big of a deal out of it.
Right. Because he's an
analyst. That's kind of how all that I think is working over there.
Yeah, it reminds me too of Jeff talking to Greg Brom on the sidelines. You know, like whenever there's situations, you got to say something to somebody and collaborate. That's you. Feels like there's always one of those guys, just like a random second tier guy who's going to be talking it over. But the thing is, like it is, we kind of knew going in that Diego Pavia was like when you were writing that stuff in August, you're like, you know, he's a pretty fun quarterback. But he's not the best thrower, and they don't really have any weapons, so it's hard to see how they're going to be efficient. But Pavia is so hard to take down. Vanderbilt, only 3 teams in the SEC have a lot fewer sacks because he's just back there. And then he can throw it over top of the linebackers and get you 15 or 20 yards or so. You mentioned it Monday, 0 interceptions. They don't commit a lot of turnovers, and they do a great job of staying ahead of the chains because of the misdirection. And you had the stat that Kentucky went 12 personnel, 47% of the snaps against.
Yeah, a lot.
47 or 41. Yeah, it was a lot. Vanderbilt goes unbalanced almost 50% of the time, 20% of the time, which 5% is a lot. You know, like any team that does it 5% of the time feels like a lot. They're doing it 20% of the time, and they aren't afraid to run it at the opposite of the unbalanced side. You know, like they're doing stuff that our guy Clark Brooks mentioned it. He's like, yeah, I've been tracking plays for like 4 years, and they did a play action. Like, you know, I forget all the terminology he used. He's like, every time you run this set, they boot away from it, and they booted into it, and it just completely took them off guard. They are zigging where everyone is zagging offensively.
Yeah, I think they've got people off schedule here now, Nick. It is very much the Vandy is great, innovative. His offense is unbelievable. All of that. like they scored 20 points against Missouri in regulation. They got bent a hole against Georgia. Like we've all of a sudden like this team did lose to Georgia State. Georgia State got whooped by Georgia Southern last week or 2 weeks ago.
Hey, well, hold up real quick, Luckett. Tell Cats, I know you're watching. I know all the guys in the locker room you're watching right now. Just cut this part out. You don't need to hear this. Just hear us talk about how great Diego Pavia is. You need to hear some more of that because
we're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to that in a little bit. But the whole Pavia angle in this game.
But to your, I'm with you, Luckett. Like, there's a lot of things for them to look good, but
let's just stick. Like, I'm writing the scouting report, Nick, and I'm digging in the tape and digging in the data. They don't rank top 30 they don't rank top 25 in any specific metric other than red zone touchdown rate and third down conversion rate. So really this game, what they're really good at, and the secret to all of this is like they rank I think it's 7th or 8th or something, top 10, top 15 in run play percentage. 64% of their snaps are run plays. 63.7%. They're number 8th nationally entering this week in run play percentage. But, Nick, they are number 104 overall in yards per rush. They're only averaging 4.5 yards per rush.
They rank 74th in success rate when they run the football.
So
they actually aren't very good at running it.
And the Pavia, if he's averaging under 5 yards per rush on non-sack carries. Cedric Alexander has been a solid back for them, but it's nothing crazy. Like, they're really running the ball just to create 2nd and 7, 2nd and 8, 3rd and 6s, 3rd and 5s. And then they're winning when they get you in 3rd and medium, 3rd and short. And, Nick, like the one thing that I will go on record and say is not going to last is their turnover fortune. 1 turnover in 5 games is like kudos to them for doing that. Pace of play has something to do with that. They're number 111 in college football and total and snaps per game, But their havoc rate allowed, they are number 86 overall in the country. Like, havoc rate should mean you turn the ball over or you get turnovers one way or the other. And they just haven't come yet. So they're going to come eventually. Will they come Saturday? I'm not sure. But they've had 5 or 6 fumbles, I believe. They've recovered all of them. And so eventually, like, there's going to be some turnovers there. And that's when the offense, I think, can get in trouble. And where I think Kentucky can have an advantage in this matchup is Alabama's run defense has shown some cracks this year. And specifically in that matchup against Vanderbilt, the linebackers were bad. Like, they were very bad in that game. You can pull up Cedric Alexander's first touchdown run. He runs through number 11's numbers and drives him into the end zone. Jihad Campbell. Campbell had a really tough game. Deontay Lawson, not as tough, but didn't play very well. Bama's linebackers were not good in that game. I think one of the biggest strengths of Kentucky's defense, I've talked about this since the summer, is this linebacker duo they have is one of the best in college football. Like, I think it's really good. I like them in this matchup being able to fit the run. Now, I think the worry with that is they're going to put Kentucky's safeties in conflict, I think, both in the run game and the pass game. Like, these safeties are going to have to make some plays. So Childress is going to have to make some tackles out in the alley.
I trust them too. Yeah.
But, Jordan Lovett, Ty Bryant, Christian Story don't bite? Can they stay deep and not give up the big play? Because that's where they really can hurt you. Because pass game-wise, Nick, this is why they're like a triple option team. Because they run the ball so much, and the numbers probably aren't great because they're just trying to get in 2nd and 7s, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 2, 4th and 1. But they lull you to sleep and throw it over the top. So their explosiveness numbers in the passing game are really, really good. And so that's where, for Kentucky, you have to stay out of trouble. But if you can get them behind the chains, and if you can get them in 3rd and long, you're going to be in a really good position. And I think Kentucky, with their front's going to be able to do that But Vanderbilt, when they get scary is when they're just able to kind of get in the third and fours.
Well,
And then that's when they have a lot of success, I think, because that's when the dual threat ability of Pavia and the play fakes, all of that come into play on those downs, and that's really where he makes his whatever NIL money he's getting from Vandy.
And don't get me wrong, he'll have a couple of those. Jackson Dart had a couple of those, but that was the point Clark Lee made earlier this week in his press conference. He's like, Kentucky, they're really good on third down. I think it's 14th nationally, 30%.
Yeah, Bama was good too. So I think you have to point that out too. They just had placed a good Bama defense and.
But what makes Kentucky so good is that instead of giving Vanderbilt 3rd and 4, it'll be 3rd and 9 or 3rd and 8, right?
Or even 3rd and 7. Yeah.
Kentucky has been very good on early downs to force long third down plays like that. You're going backwards, or if you are getting 1 or 2, there is some sort of big negative play because the havoc rate is so high. Kentucky is they rank 2nd nationally behind only Memphis right now in havoc rate. So that's part of the reason why you think, oh, well, are we really thinking that if Kentucky can slow down Georgia and can slow down Ole Miss, that they just all of a sudden can't slow down Diego Pavia? Like, are we really thinking that he's better than Jackson Dart and Carson Beck? I mean, come on, Luckett. Like, let's be real here.
Yeah. I just that is another take. Like, there's going to be a lot of talk about how great Diego Pavia is, but not to be a scheme guy, but again, there's a lot to say for his swagger, his confidence, his toughness. Like I've talked about Brock Vandagriff. I think he's just a tough guy. I think his body language kind of oozes in the rest of the team. There's no denying that he is very much, and I think we overuse this phrase in sports, he's very much a dog. He's very much an alpha mentality. Because you can see there's a belief in this team that they didn't really have before he was there, that he's brought to that program. So there is that. But, yeah, you're right. Kentucky has played different quarterbacks. I do think how Vandy wants to play kind of plays into Kentucky's teeth. But you do have to go out and stop it and make tackles and get him on the ground, which is easier said than done. But I like how Kentucky fits what Vanderbilt wants to do, because what Kentucky's biggest strength is that run front, stopping the run. We saw it last time they played against Ole Miss. We saw it against Georgia. Vandy's a little more unique, but it's still not. They're still running inside zone a ton. Like they're going to hammer away at Kentucky with inside zone and then run counters. And once Kentucky sees all the stuff a couple times, I think they're going to settle in. And so that is a real strength. If Kentucky can get them backed up, I think some good things can happen. But this is a good offense. They're going to put some stuff together. But if you don't give up, if you stop the run and you cannot give up explosives in the pass game, you can make it a long night, I think, for this Vanderbilt offense. But that, again, that's easier said than done because they have come out and shown teams early that this offense is kind of a bear to deal with. I think mostly teams are just kind of like you mentioned, all the unbalance, just how different it is. They're trying to adjust to it. Now, with all that said, this game is more about the other side to me. Like, this game is really, in a lot of ways, about Kentucky's offense. Vanderbilt has the worst defense that will play in a power conference team this year. Maybe Florida is worse. Maybe. But I think you can argue Vanderbilt is worse power conference defense. We saw what Alabama did, Nick. Virginia Tech, once they woke up from their nap to start week one, they had a huge second half against them. Virginia Tech probably beats them, or that game goes into probably a 2-point shootout if Kyron Jones doesn't get hurt. People forget that Kyron Jones had cramps during that game, had to go out. Virginia Tech had to put their backup in. So they were having a hard time stopping Virginia Tech. Missouri missed, I think, 3 field goals in 11 possessions in regulation. And scored 20 points. If you just hit those field goals, they were pushing 30 points. We saw what Alabama scored 35 points in like 45 plays last week. Now, I'm not comparing Kentucky's offense to Alabama at all, but Georgia State, who doesn't have a good offense, scored I think they scored 36 against them. And so for Kentucky, I think in this game, it's a big moment for the offense. Vanderbilt ranks sub 100 in points per drive, sub 100 in adjusted EPA per play, sub 100 in yards per drop back allowed. Now, they are kind of a boomer bust defense. They ranked in the top 50 in success rate, and their run defense numbers are good except for the explosive play glitchiness. So I think there's some pressure on Kentucky's pass game. Like, this is an advantageous matchup. You need to take advantage. But also, it's an opportunity, which I just saw this comment in the chat, Nick. Heupel was built like a traffic barrel. I think that was my brother who said that, which is great. We could get to Tennessee. We can get to Tennessee later.
Another one from Oklahoma's finest that said, let me see. Where was it? That Heupel, his chin's missing. Saw it on a milk carton. I think it's hiding in his neck.
Oh goodness, gotta love the
the YouTube chat really coming after the balls there, which you love to see.
But anyway, I think it's a big game for like Bush Hamden in this group. They like, if you look at the spread, 13.5, the total's like 46. It's calling for like a 30-16 win for Kentucky. It is calling for Kentucky's offense to score 30 points. It's calling for an offense that has scored two touchdowns in 3 SEC games to score 30 in this game. And so to me, that's going to kind of tell the story. If Kentucky's offense, it's an advantageous matchup, they need to go and score points. And then I think for a guy like Jamarian Wilcox, and I wrote about this at KSR Plus this week, Nate Noel, who played at Missouri, almost ran for 200 yards. Missouri kind of runs that stretch zone action. We've seen Bush Hamden run that with Wilcox. Wilcox has had a lot of success running that. Like, to me, I think your run game can have a big game. Obviously, we went into the numbers. The pass game should be able to have a big game. This should be a good night and performance for this Kentucky offense. And to me, on that side, it's kind of the top storyline. I know we all want to get into Kentucky's defense versus Pavia, but this should be a game where Kentucky's offense goes out and performs well.
I'm looking forward to seeing what the Cats have cooked up, because it does feel like you've taken incremental steps forward offensively week by week, and it may not always be completely visible in the box score, but you can feel it, you can see it, and especially for that tight end group where they had 3 plays schemed up for them last week and only got one of them. If that, I mean, there's a lot of opportunities there that they got to take advantage of. They got to be better and like that. I think the tight ends really challenged to step up in the last week, so that could be big for them. And you mentioned Wilcox, but also Barry and Brown. He saw the ball go through the hoop once, right? When it comes to explosive plays, like I think shooters having a tough night, go to the free throw line. It's hard to do that in football. They'll try to do it with the jet sweeps and stuff, but if you're getting hit by the ankles and keep getting shoestring tackle, it doesn't matter. Hitting that go ball was big. I think it's going to be big too, and just forcing Vanderbilt to kind of creep out of that box so you can really hit them between the tackles like you haven't been able to hit teams before. Because here's the other part too, we're going to see this offensive line go against a group that just doesn't have a bunch of future pros, studs on the front four. Like, they should be able to control the line of scrimmage here, like we haven't seen against an SEC team so far. So
it's first mortal front they've seen.
Yeah, they're like, oh, okay, we can do this here. And we can get you into the stands for the game at Kroger Field by downloading the Game Time app and just punching Kentucky Wildcats, and then flip the GT Picks switch, and they will get you the best value for any game, not just the Kentucky game, but any game out there. You can see a panoramic view of your seats before you buy them. And with the GT Picks feature, they're going to get you the best tickets at the best prices on the market possible. And the best part about Game Time, it's very, very convenient. Like I said, you see your seat, you select it, bada bing, bada boom. You hit it in your account, it comes right to your phone. Show them, scan them, you're all good. It's easy peasy, lemon squeezy when you're rocking with Game Time. And the beautiful part is when you put in promo code KSR, you're going to get $20 off your very first purchase. So download the app, Put in promo code KSR. Get $20 off your first purchase at Game Time. Terms apply. GameTimeCO.co or the Game Time app. Game Time, it's the best place to be to get any of your tickets. And
$5, Nick, gets you into the Papa Murphy house.
Tickets everywhere. $5, that's it. Go watch it play an undefeated ACC team. They had $20 for Miami. There's tickets galore over at L&N Stadium. Maybe they need like some help. Maybe they just do some giveaways.
They're doing the Costco sales.
I appreciate though that for $5 you're actually getting paid to go to a Louisville game if you use the promo code KSR Luckett. Huh?
You could see the Heisman Trophy winner there while we're in Gainesville. You could go to it's a nooner, so you could do the double dip. You could go to the Louisville game and then watch Kentucky. But Nick, I put in a wager for Cam Ward to win the Heisman this week. Plus 450. QB award here. The top competition right now is Travis Hunter, Ashton Genty, and Diego Pavia. It's QB award. Ward's he's on pace to throw for like 5,000 yards. If Miami is undefeated or even the one loss and they're in that dance, like he's winning this trophy.
Yeah. You just have to worry about Miami faltering, and then Quinn Ewers comes back from his injury and is awesome. Texas wins the SEC. That I think if you're value hunting, if you listen to these Vegas guys, they're always hunting for value and they're trying to like compare numbers, and it can get a little nauseating. Because Ward is the shortest price. It'll probably, but to your point, like it'll get shorter if they keep winning. Because
he was still. I think he was still behind Hunter, and his odds and Genty's were pretty close. Dude, they're just not giving Genty. They're not giving this award to a running back in the Mountain West.
Did you see the stats today that's going around? He's averaging 8.9 yards per carry when the other defense has 8 men in the box.
Yeah. He's going to have a 19 for 77 game. It's just unavoidable for any. It's just unavoidable.
He got pulled from one game and only had like $112.
Yeah, I just think, QB award, Miami.
Yeah.
Remember how big the turnover chain was when they were undefeated and they beat Notre Dame at home in November?
Jeremy Williams flipped over there. Yeah.
How big of a story that was. Like, this Miami thing, it's going to keep building. And by November, it's going to be, they'll have celebrities at the game. Michael Irvin is already on all fours barking at the Cal team on the sideline. So, I think he's the guy to beat for that trophy.
We got to talk a little bit more about Pavia for Heisman. But first, some breaking news in a variety of ways. The eye of the storm Milton has made landfall near Siesta Key. That was about approximately 15 minutes ago. Sustained winds of 120 miles an hour. So thoughts and prayers to everybody down there. My brother is up here, but his roommate in St. Pete is a nurse, and she had to stay back to take care of people.
Yeah.
There. So there's a lot of people who they've got to weather it out. So prayers to all of them. Stay safe out there. It's scary times right now in South Florida with Hurricane Milton. But it's joyous times in Little Cuse action. We got a safety. Jacksonville State has safety New Mexico State like it. That's when you know you've got good Wednesday night football. And finally, the Mets, they're going to the NLCS. The Phillies had the best record in the National League, and they blew it in the playoffs again. I had this conversation on my radio show, Lucky, but why is the DS only 5 games? Shouldn't it be 7? I don't understand.
That's what I was thinking today.
That's stupid.
I don't understand baseball. You play all these games, and then you all the stakes are on the line, and you want to play 5 games. Best of 3.
You played. How many times have the Phillies and the Mets played this year, and it's going to come down to these 5 games? They should all be at least 7-game series. That's the sport. It's 180 games. For me, it's different than in basketball. I get a little annoyed by the NBA doing 7-game series all out because it's like you're
first round. First round could be 5. They don't need 7 for the first round. That's what it used to be. It used to be 5, I think, for the first round.
But baseball, you play at a minimum a 3-game series every time you travel to a city. Why are you only playing 3-game series in the playoffs and then a 5? It's stupid.
I wonder if time, if it's The World Series is ending like I guess they're pushing close to November, so it might be they just got to get it in and done. But maybe
Yeah.
my answer would be just move the start of your season up. Like, what are we doing here?
Seriously, baseball. Figure it out, but the
You
Mets,
pay
they're
these
moving
guys
on.
millions of dollars. They can play in 38-degree weather.
And
Figure it out.
most of the teams that are entered are usually warm weather,
Yeah. Uh, guy making 30. These guys can play in 30-something degree weather. It is what it is.
It's going to be beautiful weather Saturday night at Kroger Field. 70s for your tailgate. So upper 50s, low 60s during the game for the 7:45 kick. We were talking about it Monday, Luckett. That's having the pullover on, just throwing that quarter zip on or that hoodie, breaking that out for the first time all year. That's going to feel great. Like I kind of want to just go stand out there in the stands and like hold up my computer with you all so I can enjoy the football weather because it's going to be great.
Yeah, tailgate wise, it's going to be, I think, a fun day. A lot of people do the Keeneland thing, but most, a lot of people just still do the regular tailgate thing. I think it's going to be a fun afternoon night because, Nick, the bad part about the South Carolina loss is that it sucked really all the life out of the fan base in a lot of ways, and that sucked some of the life out of the tailgate. Like, I think they had to end up having a good turnout for Georgia, but it wasn't the same tailgate buzz as people thought the game would have. I think there was a lot of late arriving tailgaters.
Mm-hmm.
Now they've got life again. The Ole Miss, there's a lot of momentum for the team. Big Blue Madness is the night before. The town will be buzzing for those who come in and stay the night or stay the weekend. And then you get a night game, 7:45. I think you're going to see some lively tailgates. I think that place is going to be popping. And because of the weather, I wouldn't be surprised if, like, you get a decent walk-up crowd. Like, people that just say, let's go to the game. Like, what are we doing here? The weather feels great. Let's just go to the ball game tonight. And then on the other sideline will be a guy who is the talk of the world right now. Nick, I've seen Barton Simmons do 2 national media hits this week with Outkick in the Cover 3 podcast, which he used to host that,
Yep.
So Clark Lee's been all over the place. He was on with Kubelik and Roman Harper.
Was on Jim
He was
Rome
on
today.
Feinbaum.
Yep.
He's on Jim Rome.
He said we're not wanting to talk about it. We're moving past it. We're burning that game. But let me go do a bunch of interviews.
Diego Pavia. He was on Rome or something. He was on a big
College
national
Football
show.
Live was one of them.
He did College Football Live, but he was on some big nationally syndicated. Dan Patrick. He was on with Dan Patrick. He goes on with College Football Live. They bring Johnny Football on. So they're getting all of this well-deserved hype, and they should, right? Like, they deserve every ounce of attention they're getting. Nick, I'm no coach. But if I was a coach, my players would not hear the end of Diego Pavia this week. This is like, I couldn't imagine for Mark Stoops and that staff, this is like the perfect motivation tool. I mean, it's the anti-rat poison, right? Coming off a game where they had to deal probably with them getting too much, like for Kentucky, they have to be selling over there in that football center. Y'all want a big game, but Vandy, they beat Alabama. Like, they're just coming, they're just taking what's yours. They're just taking what's yours. They're going to come into your house and try to take what's yours with their 5'10" little guy wrestler from New Mexico quarterback is going to come in here defense, and he's going to run all over you. He's next Johnny Football. He's Johnny Football, Josh Allen, all into one with Baker Mayfield's moxie, as Brad White talked to him today. To me, like, they have to be hearing from that. And if Kentucky wins this game, Nick, I would bet a lot of money.
Oh yeah, that
we're going to hear. Man, I was sick and tired of hearing about Diego Pavia in this post game. And so, and then another thing, they can say, like, Vandy beat them 2 years. So there's a lot of, I think, motivational tools that Kentucky's coaching staff has this week, and we'll see if they can put them to good use. But I do think Kentucky's bye record, you just have to mention it. It's not good. I wrote about it in Monday Huddle this week. I'll probably write about it again. They're 0-8 against the spread in bye games, regular season bye games since 2017. Now, when they've been a double-digit favorite like this, they've won them all. More than one possession favorite, or double-digit, excuse me, just double-digit. They're 4-0, but they're 0-4 against the spread, so they haven't covered. They've only won 5 games. Stoops has off a bye. It's like 5-11, something like that, 5-9 maybe. But so you have to mention that. But I would be very surprised if this team doesn't play well on Saturday with everything that they have, because the coaching staff got the perfect potion this week, the perfect antidote or whatever to get rid of the rat poison, and to get that team really, really motivated for this game. So, and for this week of practice.
Vandy under 14.5 points. I'm going to go ahead and get
What are the odds on that? You getting plus on that?
No, it was minus 115. So
even that tells you, man, like this team, this offense is averaging 30-something points a game. And Vegas says, we'll let you bet 14.5, but you got to lay money to win.
Yeah. That's where we're at.
So I think the line movement, like I think a lot of people are wondering about that. Like, how could this team that beat Alabama, how are they a 2-touchdown dog at unranked Kentucky, playing little old Kentucky? Big bad Vanderbilt playing little old Kentucky this week. How are they a 2-touchdown dog? And there's a lot of talk. There's a lot of talk this week about how Vanderbilt, it wasn't fluky how they won. They lined up and beat Alabama. But some data that a lot of people think is important would tell you that's not even close to be true.
What was the expected win expectancy, post-game win expectancy?
It was like 1% and change. Bama's post-game win expectancy was like 98-something%. Limited possession game. Yeah. Bama scored almost damn near a point per play on offense. Yeah. They had 2 turnovers. The turnovers led directly to points. So if you do that little algorithm that is out there, they had some bad turnover luck. And then Vanderbilt, like they just won on all these key situations, red zone and third down. That it's not necessarily, I don't think, sustainable week to week. You got
to credit them for maximizing what they have.
Everything. It's just when you go play that round of golf, Nick, and you're just hitting it square all the time. That's just what that game was for, and you have to give them credit. Now, I also think there's some pressure on Vanderbilt because they don't want to let this moment slip away. Like they've got real momentum now, and they want to kind of cash in on that. And I haven't looked at the slate on October 26th yet, but they play Texas at home. If they win this game, because they got Ball State next week, and they'll beat Ball State. Ball State might be the worst team, power conference team in college football.
Yeah.
You have to think game day. They're already looking at that.
Right.
Like to go there. So it's another Kentucky game with game day stakes on the line to me. Like the second one we've gotten with game day stakes on the line. So there's a lot at play for them, and I think there's some pressure internally on Clark Lee and the coaching staff. Like we really got to keep this momentum rolling because we've got it now, and we've worked so hard to get it. We can't let it slip away. And so that makes it I think a unique matchup. But I definitely think Kentucky is laying these points for a reason, and it's gone in the other direction because I think a lot of people who are wise are putting their dollar behind Kentucky here because they just saw how Vanderbilt got some breaks last week, and Kentucky I think matches up with them. We've kind of talked about that. And Kentucky, they're not afraid to play Vanderbilt style of ball.
No,
that's where they thrive.
Right, exactly.
Whereas, so I think there's a lot of things that line up. And Kentucky in the same stadium, if you do post game win expectancy, theirs was against Georgia, who maybe is Alabama's peer. Kentucky's was like 60% range, and they won that game, or to win that game, and they lost it. Turnover luck went Kentucky's on the wrong way, where it went the right way for Vanderbilt. Like you mentioned, they got the one play, the break you got to get in a game like that. They get the pick six early. That really kind of dictated the terms of the game even more so in Vanderbilt's way. And so I think there's some factors I think working in Kentucky's favor. Now they got to go out and play and take advantage of it. But I think that kind of there's some reasons for why the spread is where it is.
There were some people asking in the chat too because folks online are whispering, "Oh, a blackout? Is there a blackout coming?" Love that we've really truly done an hour of Kentucky Vanderbilt talk without having to really stretch things thin. You rarely get that for this game, and I think the only reason why people are mentioning that is because that's the one uniform combination we just haven't seen. If
It'll be
that,
this game or the Auburn game. They'll wear the black jerseys this game or the Auburn
yeah,
game.
they'll wear them in one of the two games, and I would just imagine it's probably going to be Auburn because this is homecoming. You want to wear traditional uniforms to appease your homecoming crowd.
Have they
So
wore the chrome domes with all blue yet?
no, so that'll probably be it. They've worn all blue,
Yeah.
but it was blue helmets, blue jerseys, blue pants. So I
I
would
bet
imagine
that would be my bet on the jersey combo.
yeah,
Yeah, because they've already worn gray. They wore gray. So yeah.
for the Georgia game. So that would be my bet. I also wanted to mention the two other facts. Eli Stowers, the tight end, leads the SEC among all tight ends, 333 receiving
Yeah, he's
yards.
a player.
He's a good ball player. Keep an eye on him on Saturday. Here's the other one too. Brock Taylor, their kicker, is fascinating. They got a good kicker. 350-yarders, and he had a 57-yarder at Missouri. But he's also the same guy who missed a 38-yarder to force it into triple overtime at Missouri. Like it was a short kick. After he hit the bomb that basically kept him in it. So a little inconsistent, but can kick from a long way away. That's one other thing to keep in mind for Saturday in one of these limited possession games, where if they're going to make it a grinded out, those field goals are going to be at a premium, and you got two really good field goal kickers playing on Saturday.
If you were asked me pick a couple areas that would concern you from Kentucky's angle, one would be average starting field position, Nick. Vanderbilt's number 10 on offense and average starting field position. They get good field position. A lot of that is on punting. So, and we know punting's been an issue for Kentucky. So in a game like this against these two teams, that could have a big role, maybe a bigger impact more than normal. So average starting field position, I think, is something to watch. And then red zone offense.
Yeah.
It's worrisome to me.
You had to fumble to get your go ahead touchdown.
They beat Ole Miss in kind of red zone, extended red zone, finishing drives once you get into scoring territory. They had 20 points on 5 opportunities, and then Ole Miss had half of that. They had 10 points on 5 opportunities. And that was honestly how they won the game in a way. So Vanderbilt, we know their offense is good down there, but we know Kentucky's defense is good down there. So that could be, let's say that place a draw. What my worry would be here for Kentucky, because they haven't been good finishing drives yet here in the red zone. The Vanderbilt game, they needed a flag on a PI on third down. They need multiple PIs to extend that drive, and then they needed a fumble recovery to score on the other one. So that would be the concern for me. If Kentucky comes up short in the red zone, has to settle for field goals, which they've had to do too much this year, that could let Vanderbilt hang around. So those would be 2 areas of concern for me. Would be red zone offense and then average starting field position for Vanderbilt's offense.
It should be a doozy. 7:45 kickoff on the SEC network. If you're tailgating, it's more like 8. Also, if you got any Keeneland picks, please share them. Hell, I should be sharing them. I was hot Friday. We were hot. So maybe we'll share a few of those on KS Board if you haven't joined the community. Join 50, get you 50% off now, running that at least through Big Blue Madness, which is Friday. So big weekend to officially start the crossover of Kentucky basketball and Kentucky football. Hopefully we get it started with a big Kentucky football win over the Vanderbilt Commodores. Should be a good one.
Pigskin preview, go live Thursday afternoon. Be on the YouTube channel for those that maybe missed it. Nick, how'd you do last week?
2-1.
Don't want to talk about it? 2-1. I was 2-1 as well. So winning weekend for the Syndicate.
Yeah. We had a winning weekend. It could have been better too. I had Louisville. Louisville was my one loser.
Arizona on my end.
Yeah. I also did the dumb thing too, where I forgot to bet the Cal game. So in my where it matters in my account, I pushed. I got nothing on one of those.
Yeah.
Picks.
We had a pretty good weekend. Luckett's locks, Nick. We haven't had a losing weekend in our traditional picks yet.
Love it.
We're halfway through the season, so we want to get over there. And our props went 3-1 last week. We had a very good week in props.
Let's
last
keep
week.
raking it up.
So let's keep it rolling. We were even giving out winners on KS Board. T. Higgins, anytime touchdown. You could have got for plus 200 something odds. He cashed first, like Bengals' first drive that catches. So we had a good weekend last week, and we won't talk about the end of that Bengals game, but we had a good
we
weekend.
don't need to.
So we're doing to keep it rolling.
Let's keep it rolling. We'll be back with more tomorrow on the KSR YouTube channel. For Adam Luckett, I'm Nick Roush. Go Cats and go Crow Green.